So, what if the future of school isn't happening in a school building at all? Here's a reality most educators won't admit. We've turned learning into a location problem instead of an experience problem. We've convinced ourselves that if kids just show up to the right building, sit in the right classroom, and follow the right pacing guide, then somehow they'll be prepared for a world that's changing faster than we can write our lesson plans. But while we're fighting to maintain control over page 34 of the pacing guide, our students are starving for learning that actually connects to their lives and to their futures. They're searching for meaning, for purpose, and relevance connection. The stakes are high, right? There's an incredible loss of engagement. We're losing not only the engagement, but we're losing generations of, this generation's belief that school has anything meaningful to offer them. And when education becomes irrelevant, we're all going to lose. So, what happens when you build a 32,000 square foot education R&D facility where students don't just learn about the world, they solve actual community problems? Where Bath and Body Works employees teach science, the science of fragrance, where a high school freshman named Javier discovers storytelling through internships and ends up with a documentary nominated for an Oscar. That's exactly what Dr. Annalies Corbin has created at the Past Foundation. And today she's sharing 5 strategies that make magic happen. These are strategies you can implement and execute on your campus, strategies that link learning to life in ways that most schools never even attempt. Hey, I'm Danny Bauer, and this is Better Leaders, Better Schools, the original Ruckus cast for visionary leaders who want to do school different, even within a traditional system, so that we create a campus experience worth showing up for. Thanks to Ruckus Makers just like you, this show ranks in the top 1% of nearly 4 million podcasts worldwide. Appreciate you so much for pressing play. We'll get to the main content in just a second after a message from our show sponsors. Want to know how top schools create collaborative learning environments that actually work? ODP Business Solutions has equipped innovative educators for over 3 decades. Visit odpbusiness.com/education and let's make a ruckus together. That's odpbusiness.com/education. This episode is sponsored by Play Piper. Every student starts with curiosity, and Piper, we keep it alive. Our hands-on STEM kits turn gaming passion into real engineering skills. Spark confidence in your students at playpiper.com/ruckus. That's playpiper.com/ruckus. IXL takes the guesswork out of lesson planning for teachers. IXL's ready-made lesson plans are aligned to your textbooks and state standards, so teachers can turn to IXL for the exact content they need to help their students. You can get started today at ixl.com/leaders. That's ixl.com/leaders. All right, and Dr. Corbin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Danny. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So just to set some context, I had the pleasure of like meeting you in real life, right? And being able to be able to get your great book, Hacking School, and you autographed it for me, which is so kind and sweet. And that was meaningful. But what I loved most about that visit, because I didn't know too much about what I was walking into, so to speak, right? And then I saw what you've built. And the work that's happening Past Foundation, like, oh, this is the Do School Different dream in real life, right? Like literally.
Literally.
And I was so impressed, and I didn't want to leave, honestly. I wanted to just be able to be there all the time. Like that was my feeling. And I'm just so impressed. So I wanted to start off
Well,
that way
thank you.
because
Thank you.
that's not true for every guest, but it's true for
Mhm.
you. And I really want people to understand that about what you're doing. So besides me saying, oh, I loved it there and I want to be there like as much as possible, can you paint a picture a little bit of like the work that's happening at the Past Foundation? And then we'll dive into concepts, from
Sure.
hacking school as well.
Yeah. Well, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. We're super proud of the work that we do. So the facility that Danny came to visit, it's a 32,000 square foot education R&D prototyping facility. And that's a lot of words, right? But
It is.
basically what it means is that we created a place where K-12, post-secondary, business and industry, and community could all come together to not just think about teaching, learning, and work of the future differently, but more importantly, to co-design what
Hmm.
it could be, right? And because we're not a school, but we work with schools, and because we have school and residence partners in the building with us all the time, and because industry and all these other entities and parties can come there, it gives us that collaborative freedom to say, if we imagine it to be something completely different, we don't have the same constraints. We don't have to live to the same set of guidelines. We don't have to follow
Mm,
X, Y, and Z policy mandates. So we can create these opportunities that we can then field test with real students or real teachers or real community members, right? In a place that is all about honoring the learning journey, whatever that means for any individual student. And
mhm.
so I'm biased, but I think it's one of the most magical places on earth, right?
Mhm, mhm, and
Right.
it is, and in my first book, I said, like, schools and spaces like yours should be the most magical on earth and not
Mhm.
Disney,
Mhm.
because the reason Disney works is kids and their
Yeah.
imagination and their
Yeah.
in their, inherent, curiosity.
Mhm.
Yeah, they got Mickey Mouse, and of course, they have amazing resources, but that's not why Disney works. Disney works because of the kids, and so,
Right.
you really tapped into that. The energy, the learning, the discovery that I was seeing in both student and faculty faces,
Mhm.
again, that's what, like, was so attractive, to me. And it doesn't stop when they pass through, right? Past,
Right.
like, I forget the gentleman's name, but the
Hobby.
one, yeah, with video and
Hobby.
pictures. Can you talk
Yeah.
about him a bit? Because it's
Sure.
so cool.
Yeah. It was really cool, right? And it's one of my favorite things to talk about. So,
Yeah, yeah.
one of the things that I love about Past is that we will get kids starting to come because in addition to this R&D sort of thing that's happening, there's more to it than that, right? We're a nonprofit organization,
Mhm.
and within the nonprofit, we have an entire group that works on student experiences. So, what does it mean to be a student? What was the optimal thing or experience for a student to have or be? And we co-design within that space. We do the same thing for educators, right? Same sort of imagining. And then we also are research based. But for all of that to tie together, right, we have to create these set of opportunities and then we have to study them and we have to think about them and we have to influence them in a variety of different ways. So one of the ways that we do that is we do an awful lot of work with out of school time, after school weekends, a lot of summer programs. So thousands and thousands, literally. I think we average about 7,500 kids a summer coming
Mm.
through our summer STEM programs, and they start in pre-K and it goes all the way through collegiate. And we run them all together, littles and bigs in the building at the same time, interacting, co-learning, all those sorts of things. And what I love about that is that we have students who show up to us when they're young, and then for a variety of different reasons and ways, they grow up with us, literally with
Mm,
us,
mhm,
not
mhm,
not with us around, but their entire beings we get to have a part of, right? And so
mhm.
Javier came to us as a freshman in high school. So he was a little older than some of the kiddos that travel with us over time. And he was trying to find himself and he did a bunch of different internships and ultimately discovered that he loved photography, videography,
Right.
storytelling.
Yeah.
And he then continued to have more and more internships with us, unpaid and then paid. And then he worked for us part-time in the summer, and then that turned into working half-time while he went to college to get a degree in documentary filmmaking. And then ultimately, he's now a full-time employee running our entire marketing division and is our chief storyteller. And for his senior project at The Ohio State University, he graduated a year ago, and his senior project was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, that's insane.
Incredible. And Danny got
Yeah,
to meet him,
yeah,
and,
yeah.
but he's one of many
Right.
of that same story.
Yeah,
One of many.
that's cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah.
And maybe, if I asked you like what's exciting you about what's happening like right now, because you're
Mhm.
talking about R&D and this stuff and you
Mhm.
experiment, look at data. Like conceptually, we all get it, but
Yeah.
like bring us to something you're doing, like make it concrete. One of the things that's exciting you right now, maybe.
So one of the things that I get really excited about is we get the opportunity to work with really cool industry partners, right? And the
Hmm.
reality is, I think sometimes in the sort of K-12 space in particular, we struggle to figure out what are we preparing kids for? And B, if we figure that piece out, then
Hmm.
what does that look like? Not the how to
Hmm.
get there, but literally, what are they going to do? And I think that one of the big disconnects that I see frequently is the fact that we're ultimately sending people off to be fully fledged, happy, healthy, all that sort of stuff, citizens that are going to impact the world. But they're going to jobs. They're going to go work for companies or industries or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Well, how do we make that tangible from a really, really early age? And we continue to grow the experiences and the opportunity to really sort of immerse yourself in that. So we have this project, this whole program called Portable Innovation Labs, which is an incredible partner funded for us. And it has allowed us to take all the incredible things that we do in these programs, the things that you saw, Danny, when you were in the building, like put it in a box, a giant box, not a little box. It's, the size of a table box, some of them, right? But they're co-designed with industry partners and they get deployed into schools. It's sort of like a STEM learning lending library across the state.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to scale it into other states. And that's fun because these industry partners come in and we get to co-design this thing that then helps kids understand, hey, I could go to work at that place. And a good example is Bath and Body Works. And so everybody
Okay.
knows the Bath and Body Works stores in the mall. That's what
Yeah.
kids think it is. But
Right.
that's a piece of this giant endeavor and enterprise, right? And so Bath and Body Works came to us and said, hey, we want people to understand you can come here and you can be in logistics, you can be in product design, you could be in marketing, you could be in, I mean, literally it's so much stuff, right? And
Sure.
so
Sure.
we co-designed with them a whole set of programs around the idea we called the science of fragrance.
Hmm.
And kids make bath bombs and they do all the fun stuff, but more
Hmm.
importantly, the associates from Bath and Body Works, they come and they actually deploy that with partner teachers in actual classrooms within their own communities.
Hmm.
That's super cool to me because it's very, very tangible.
Yeah, it's very real, and
Mhm.
kids, teachers, everybody's probably pretty familiar,
Yeah.
with that organization, that business,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, it just makes the learning real, in that moment, right?
It does, and it also, they're all designed so there's not too many constraints, right? And that's part of what we love. That's part of our philosophy is,
Hmm.
if a kid says, "Well, that's really cool, but why X, Y, or Z?" Then they should have the freedom to be able to explore X, Y, and Z until they've satisfied themselves,
Hmm. 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 Yeah,
right?
that's good.
Yeah.
So, in hacking school, you mentioned five key strategies
Mhm.
to link learning to life. Can you give a broad overview of what those strategies are?
Sure, and I'll start with they're nothing new. So let's just be really clear. I didn't make this up. This is
Yeah.
all things amazing educators are doing. But what I've found over the last 25 years or so of doing this work is not everybody's doing all of them.
Hmm.
Some may be doing this one or this one, but the magic happens in the places where all five are brought together. And it's not limited
Okay.
to these five things, but these five things I have found are a game changer in terms of innovative, sustained innovation in the way we think about school, right? Or
Okay.
learning. And
Hmm.
so the five things are agency, right? That, your
Hmm.
classroom or your program has to embrace student agency. And honestly, it leads with agency, recognizing that learner has so much to contribute to the learning process, right?
Yeah.
The second one is around cultural relevancy or resiliency, whichever phrase you prefer to use. And that's really embracing the idea that if the kids can't see themselves in whatever it is that we're teaching, they're not going to get it. right? And it's not because they're not capable, because kids are kids, man. They are all about themselves, and we need to embrace that in them because that's their developmental stages happening. But they need to see them. They need to see how it connects to them and why it's important to them. And we don't want them saying, why am I ever going to use algebra? That's the wrong question for a kid to ever be asking.
Right.
So that cultural relevancy is around embracing that. And then the third one that we really think a lot about is around mastery. And that's just recognizing that, it's about more than taking a test. It's about the student's ability to take the information and the knowledge and to apply it other places. And it disconnects the learning from the artificial time constraints that policy often says that we have to tie to the educational process. So mastery or competency based, again, multiple terms get tossed about that mean relatively the same thing. And then the fourth one is transdisciplinary, and that's just breaking down the silos, right? We don't in the world of living in life, we don't do math for the sake of doing math. Maybe if you love math, you might just do math to do math, but most of us don't. And so it's really around making sure that the learning happens within the context and we're not artificially siloing knowledge. We're not going to ring a bell and say, now you go to English class, and ring another bell and say, now you go to science class. We're really trying to eliminate that sort of formalized structure in learning. And then the fifth one is problem-based. And we use problem-based as opposed to project-based. You can, in fact, use them a lot interchangeably, but we use problem-based because we're really trying to get our educators, our schools, our communities to think bigger and more complex. And so there's numerous sort of ways to get there, but we utilize that to say, look, if we take all of this stuff and we use it as applied teaching and learning, very hands-on, very tangible, suddenly students will be able to use that knowledge to solve really complex problems. Yeah. So that's the 5 strategies. Again, nothing new.
Nothing new, but also important. And I think just to recap what you said, when you've seen them packaged together, right, that really has led to just great outcomes, great results on that link of learning and life, that we want to have. I love that idea of like getting students, getting educators to think bigger, where you ended there with problem-based learning. What might, if I'm a ruckus maker leading a campus and I'd love to elevate sort of the bigger picture that my students and teachers are seeing what's possible, what strategies or what might you encourage us to do to kind of get to that bigger picture thinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. One of the things that I will always talk with these great ruckus makers leaders is to say, look, the reality is you've got so many things going on in your community. You've got lots of community problems or issues, right, that your students can and should be part of solving. That's the easiest way to start because it's so deeply personal to the people that are involved. And once you scaffold with that, solve a local community problem, right, then you can start to take that community problem and weave it into a bigger regional problem because I can promise you they're related, right? And so it creates this natural scaffold for how you can help your learners as well as your educators and your community embrace making this type of shift, because eventually you want to be able to shift to things and start working on problems that may or may not be impacting you directly, but you're really curious about, or you feel like you have the capacity to take that on, right? So for example, we're talking about these big, hairy, audacious global sort of problems, right? So climate change or geopolitical or, eliminating certain diseases on a global scale. So these kinds of things, they're big. They're super complex. No one person or one place is ever going to be able to solve for all of it, nor should they, because we need that diversity of thought, thinking, and opportunity. And so I tell people, start with what's right here. You have stuff. Solve for that.
And I would think that if you start right here, that would also sort of lend you to connecting to cultural relevance too. Am I right?
100%.
Yeah. Why do you think? Why would a school not do that?
Well, so that's an interesting question too, right? And I've heard lots of reasons over the
Yeah.
years, as you could imagine, right? And
Yeah.
I think the primary one, I guess that there's two things that I see consistently with this. The first one is, well, but we have to do all this other stuff, right? I mean,
Ooh.
and that is the reality, right? We have a lot of rules, mandates that come state, federally, locally, whatever it happens to be. All the stuff that as educators we're supposed to do on behalf of our students. What I really want people to think about is that's just a set of constraints. We can design new ways of doing this work with those
Mhm.
constraints in mind, right? But
Mhm.
you don't have
Mhm.
to do it the same way anymore. So that's one of the reasons why they don't. And I think that the second reason, and this really gets to I think that leadership piece, is that sometimes, right, we find ourselves in systems that are really evaluating our educators, right, based on a certain set of criteria. And if you don't have leadership that can see beyond just the general black and white to see the potential, right? And to make the modifications, your educators will be terrified of being judged wrongly, if you will, right? Or somebody not understanding. I mean, some of the best educators I've ever seen have consistently told me that, when their leadership comes in and evaluates them, they get terrible evaluations. And it has impact on their careers. Well, that's not a teacher issue, I would argue, right?
That's the Yeah, one of the great hypocrisies I think of
Mhm.
education is, they like the names of innovation and failing forward, right?
Mhm.
Taking risks, be bold here.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, my lived experience and of many others is that, okay, so great. That's exactly why I signed up for this endeavor.
Right.
And then you
Yeah.
go out and do it and you're crushed over the head with a 2x4 and disciplined
Mhm.
and written up,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Because you said, "Oh, I thought we were taking the innovation thing
Yeah.
seriously."
No, and and like you, right? I mean, so many teachers that I've worked with or talked to, I hear this over and over again. And it's rare that I meet a truly, truly innovative educator. And there's some
Mhm,
amazing ones, as you know, out in the world.
mhm.
And they don't have that story somewhere in their journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a shame. It's
Mm-hmm.
too bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to talk to, when it comes to the 5 key strategies that's student agency, student-centered approach is
Mm-hmm.
so important. But just like the other things we were talking about, there's challenges there too, which
Mm-hmm.
probably to you and I, like, don't make sense. Why isn't this the default? Why doesn't everybody see it this way? And maybe it's just easier to not be student-centered and be me me-centered, but,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what do you think is going on there in terms of, challenges and if I'm a ruckus maker leading a campus, how might I change that as well?
I think that one boils down to fear of losing control.
Mm,
Right?
mm,
I
mm,
hear that often. It's like, well, I can't, my kids will
right.
never get that done, or they'll never meet the deadlines, or it'll just be chaos. And I get that. And the reality is we have to teach students how to be self-aware, and we have to scaffold them into how to make choices and to be on time. But that is part of building agency for our students. And
Yeah.
I think for your ruckus makers out there, it's just being supportive of that educator to go down that road. But I would also argue starting with the short, small pieces. Like if you're not an educator that embraces agency as your part of your everyday practice, don't go all in at once. It will eat you alive. And your administrators, your ruckus makers, right, and should coach you in that, right? Start
Mm,
small.
mm,
Let's bring agency in doing this 5-minute endeavor where you're encouraging conversations around your students about 2 or 3 different directions you could take with a lesson. Go with the one that kids want to. It's a simple vote, but that's agency starting to be manifested, right? So
mhm.
part of it is just small steps, not
Yeah.
giant steps, but very consistent and deliberate steps, because the students will ultimately get to where they honor that as well.
Yeah. Now, towards the end of the show, we're going to get to like some of the ways you're supporting ruckus makers in living
Mhm.
out, these strategies too. But the pin I want to put here, and just a very quick story, well, two quick stories, if you don't mind me sharing. You can get some
Yeah.
water while I tell it. One, I remember as an instructional coach slash teacher. So half my time was coaching teachers, really supporting them. Half my time was teaching senior English at a high school. But I'll never forget, it was so interesting. The principal, who was a big support and fan, and cheerleader for what we were trying to accomplish on campus and through my class as well. I remember him and then somebody like from the central office or whatever. And this is in Chicago, right? So somebody who was removed layers, from the day-to-day experience. They both came in, and I think they were probably trying to align like feedback, and what is great teaching and blah, 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 blah. He loved, and I loved, and the students loved everything that happened that day. And the person that was brought in thought I was like one of the worst teachers they've ever seen. Like what was he even teaching, the standards?
Right.
And because it wasn't presented in the way where the teacher, lectures the entire time, and there's worksheets and, God knows what else. But it was just so fascinating. He had to like advocate for me to like basically keep my job, right? Where he thought it, and he hired me to be coaching the staff.
Right.
So
Right.
this was a real challenge for him. So I share that real quick because education needs us, the Ruckus Makers, to be out there and supporting teachers and showing the way it's done. Second mini story I want to share is like when you think of most senior classes a few weeks out of graduation, you probably think of a space that is totally disengaged, right? Like, are they even coming to class? Like, how do you keep them? How do you keep them engaged in all this? So I don't remember like everything we did, but I remember that we were all trying to answer some kind of question and produce some kind of project that we were going to share, with all our peers at the end of the whatever 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that kind of thing. But I didn't have the issue of attendance or engagement or whatever because I gave away all the control to those seniors. What do you want to do? How do you want to end, right? And that's a powerful question to answer too.
It
Like
is.
what do you want this last chapter to be for you, right?
Right.
And keeping it academically rigorous and all this kind of stuff. And I did a project along with them. So yes, I would conference with students and make sure that they were staying on task and hitting deadlines and all that kind of stuff. But I also, when I was working on my project, I wanted to work on my project, right? I didn't want to manage behavior and that kind of thing.
Right.
But it worked. It worked, right? And it was just a really magical, amazing, kind of experience. So thank you for allowing me to share that real quick.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love those both. I love both of
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. Right on. Okay, cool. ODP Business Solutions, formerly Office Depot Business Solutions Division, has been a trusted partner for schools for 30 years. At ODP Business Solutions, we're by your side to meet your evolving education needs. Remember that feeling when you wanted to upgrade your learning spaces, but the budget said, maybe next year? Here's what most people don't know. ODP Business Solutions doesn't just offer competitive pricing. We give you access to negotiated cooperative contracts that maximize every dollar. Want proof? We helped the Baldwin School District transform their entire campus while staying under budget. How? By combining smart design with smarter purchasing. From essential supplies to cutting edge tech, from sustainable cleaning solutions to flexible furniture, we're your one-stop shop to do school different. And the best part, you can get it all from a single supplier. That helps you simplify ordering and streamlining budgeting while staying compliant with easy access to cooperative contracts. However you want to advance, ODP Business Solutions has 30 years of experience helping districts like yours get ahead. Visit odpbusiness.com/education to learn more. That's odpbusiness.com/education. Too often, kids who love gaming don't see themselves as scientists or engineers. But what if play could open the door? That's what Play Piper is all about. Their hands-on STEM kits turn curiosity into confidence by connecting gaming and tinkering with real coding and engineering. Suddenly, students realize they are capable of discovery and innovation. For educators searching for ways to spark excitement and keep kids engaged in STEM, Piper is the bridge. You can learn more at playpiper.com/ruckus. Check them out at playpiper.com/ruckus. What makes an assessment effective? I would argue giving teachers access to quick, reliable, and useful results that inform the next best steps for teaching. And that's where IXL really stands out. Teachers get powerful insights into student performance on a daily basis so they can address issues the moment they arise. Imagine that, adjusting instruction in real time before it's too late. Your teachers have a tool that helps them be even more effective. And your students, they grow and they grow. Check it out for yourself at ixl.com/leaders. That's ixl.com/leaders. I would love to ask you about preparing kids for the future, right? Because that's
Mhm.
something that you think a lot about, and me too. But yeah, what do you see as like how we can best support, these kiddos and world? I mean, everybody, it's kind of a cliche, things are changing so fast. Well, they are.
Mhm. They
How
are.
do we prepare kids, for this future?
For me, I think that one of the primary things that we can do for our young learners is, well, even our adult learners, right, is to recognize that what we always did is not what's needed now, first and
Mm,
foremost, right? Just
mm,
because that's the way I did it when I was in school, or just because this is the way we did it last year or even last month, right?
right.
Is not necessarily what we should be doing. And I think that this idea of being nimble, taking advantage of the moment the world has to give you on any given day is a
Mm,
game changer,
mm,
right? Because as an educator, if you can lead a learning environment that says, hey, this just happened in the world today. What do we think about that? What
yeah.
does that have to do with? I'm the science teacher with science. What does that have to do with whatever it is that I'm teaching? Help the kids put that into context from the moment that they're in, right? Because it gives them meaning. And it also, I think, honors the things that they're probably already thinking about. But we don't do enough of that. We get so caught up in it's Tuesday and I'm supposed to be on page 34 of my teaching guide. And oh, by the way, tomorrow my administrator is going to come in and evaluate me, and they're going to have that somebody from the district who has no idea what we do here at the school, right?
Mhm,
That's the last stuff that we should be spending our time, energy on, effort
mm,
on. If at the end of
mm.
the day, we're trying to prepare kids for the world, well, then let's let the world be the guide with us.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I told you about the last classroom I ever taught. And both of those
Mhm.
micro stories happened my last year teaching. The first year I taught, I went this guy from Chicago went all the way down to become a Georgia peach, right? And I was teaching in Marietta, Georgia, where they make Cabbage Patch Kids, believe it or not,
Mhm.
and they have
Yeah.
an Air Force base there too. But they gave me a pacing guide, and I was like, "What is
Oh my
this?"
gosh,
I
yes.
said,
Mhm.
right? Because I went to University of Illinois and the professor who taught me to be a teacher, my favorite like professor in the world, Professor Willis, we were curious and we were creative and we were building all this stuff that was relevant in responding to things that are happening right now. And then I get my first job and they said, here's what you teach on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. And I was like, oh my gosh,
And you're like, "What?"
I had no idea. I had no idea
Yeah.
that it even existed or what to do.
And it
So
still does today, right, Danny? I mean, how many
yeah,
places do you encounter that still are using that process?
for
A lot.
sure. For sure. And I think, we could jam on that for like 10 hours,
Mhm.
but it's to me, that's an indicative of sort of like a low trust environment,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
sort of trying to boil teaching down to the lowest common denominator,
Well,
because Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Well, I was gonna say, but yes, I agree 100%. And I've had some interesting conversations recently, and
Hmm.
I think that part of what's happening there is we've deprofessionalized the profession of teaching.
Hmm.
And you're right, that's a trust thing, right? I mean,
Hmm.
these
Hmm.
people are professionals. You're hiring these people because they have the qualifications necessary to come in and teach or to co-learn with these incredible students. And
Yeah.
yet, I mean, it's not very professional to hand somebody a pacing guide.
Yeah. 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 That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So, I think the last question, like sort of book related, your work related, and then I'd like to hear a little bit about, work you're doing to support
Mhm.
Ruckus Makers, but trends in education, you talk about it in the book, but these days, like, what are you excited about? And is there anything that is causing you to pause as well?
Yeah. So the one of the things that I'm super excited about, and I'll fully admit right off, I'm a total techno geek. I love technology. I love messing with it. I love exploring it. I love testing it to its limits. I like breaking it, right?
Yeah.
I realize that, not everybody is like that. So with that,
Hmm.
one of the things I'm super excited, I love the idea of AI and AI in
Hmm.
school, not to
Hmm.
replace anything, but it's an incredible tool, and it is a big piece of work of the future, no question
Yeah.
whatsoever. And I love working with educators that are willing to embrace the possibility of it, and they don't ask the question, how do I keep my kids from teaching from cheating,
Cheating.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or whatever, right? So that to me, those are people that are like, okay, they're going to use it. So let me teach them how to use it. That to me is super, super exciting. Because if
Hmm.
we don't embrace this, then we are never going to make sure our kids are prepared for what's out there. And the reality is, it is changing fast, and we have no idea what that's going to be. Right.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think that part of that excitement for me is that, this idea we stop preparing for what we think we know, and we start preparing for all the stuff we can't imagine.
Yeah, that's great. Anything causing concern or a pause that you want to discuss?
Um,
And it's okay to pass if you don't want to.
no, no. I mean, I think one of the things that causes me the greatest pause right now is in an effort, in a, how do I want to put this? I'm just not going to sugarcoat it. The reality is there's a lot that we're breaking down in the world of education, and some of it really needed to go. I
Hmm.
applaud that, right?
Hmm.
But I think that there's also this sort of push to stop being innovative, to stop trying, to stop really, really pushing the envelope for the sake of tradition or a set of policies or politics that may or may not truly be sustaining moving forward. And
Hmm.
that causes me great concern, right? It's like all the efforts that have been made to stop research. Take your pick a field, it doesn't matter. We're doing that a
Yeah.
lot right now, and we've spent billions of dollars, and we've made all these strides, and so we've decided to defund this thing. And yes, maybe we're spending money where we shouldn't, but we're not being deliberate, we're being blunt.
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
we do things like that, I think it's going to have some long-term consequences that we're going to have to live with. And
Yeah.
again, it's not about politics, it's about understanding what happens when we bluntly dismantle systems instead
Hmm.
of strategically dismantle systems.
Yeah, I guess it's the difference between a surgery with a dull knife and like a
Mhm.
precise whatever
Right,
incisor or something like
right,
that.
right.
So
Yeah.
you were mentioning on the pre-call that you have some pretty cool programs and opportunities that are supportive
Mhm,
for school leaders and linked to concepts in hacking schools. So do you
mhm.
mind sharing a little bit about that work?
Sure. One of the things that we've really been thinking a lot about is this idea around professional development, like teacher professional development. And it's been happening for a long time in a very set of traditional ways. And there's a time and place for that. But we also recognize that because the world is changing and the needs of educators are changing with that, that we wanted to create a set of resources that would allow teachers to be more autonomous, right? So that same agency that we really want educators to help kids with, I
Hmm.
really want leaders to recognize these are incredible professionals and giving them a little agency as well is a good thing. So we created a whole set of courses, self-serve, that educators could dig deeper. Like, let's say, hey, I got agency, but I'm really struggling with transdisciplinary. I want
Mhm.
some more help with that. So I could dive in online on my own time. And then if I want more, I could become part of a cohort, really low barriers to entry to be able to get people really rolling up their sleeves and doing this work. And then, leadership can say, hey, I want some specialized coaching for a group of teachers who've really embraced this. So we can do those
Mhm.
pieces and parts. So more really, really tailored to the individual needs of the school or sets of educators, or where leadership is seeing some struggle. But we also want to make sure that we co-design, right? That there's nothing that comes sort of off the shelf, because one size does not fit all
Mm.
within our community. So
Yeah, right on. Where can people learn more about those
the
programs?
the easiest way is just to go to pastfoundation.org, PAST foundation.org, and click on link for hacking school or online learning, and you'll be able to get all of that information.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Annalise, if you could put one message, all school marquees for a single day, what would your message be?
Say yes.
I love it.
Say yes. I mean, too many times, right, a thing or an idea or an opportunity is
Mhm.
presented to us as either learners, as educators, as a community, and we start with all the reasons why not, instead of simply saying yes. Let's figure this out.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful. I just spoke with one of my good friends, Mitch, and he joins me on this show like quite a
Mhm.
bit. But we were discussing that idea of saying yes, and one of my mentors, Matthew Dix, who's teaching me about storytelling, and he has a book today. Someday is today, because it's
I
all
love
people
that.
have all these ideas, right? Like
Yeah.
write the
Mhm.
book, start the past foundation, start the
Mhm.
podcast, whatever, and the idea and dream dies with them. They never take
Mhm.
action. And so it's kind of like a productivity book. I bought it because I just want to support his work, not necessarily like I want to be more productive. I think I'm already pretty productive. But the biggest thing that he's challenged my thinking on specifically is what you just said, that idea of
Mhm.
saying yes. So I'm
Mhm.
just double clicking on this because I think a lot about how to protect leaders' boundaries and how to get over like saying no is not a bad thing. But within that too, like there is like if you take on this point of view of saying yes, things just happen, right? Doors
Mhm.
open that
Mhm.
never would have opened before, right? Because maybe you were a little too had too many boundaries. So
Right.
yeah, it
Right.
really challenged my thinking, and so I appreciate
Mhm.
you sharing it and challenging my thinking right now too. Let's talk about your dream school. I was
Yeah.
joking, you kind of already built it, but you do in real life. You have constraints around
Mhm.
resources. In this thought
Yep.
experiment, you do not, and your only constraint is your ability to imagine. So I'm wondering how that might change what you've built. Like, what would be three guiding principles if there were no resource constraints at all?
Mhm. So the first one for me is, I dream of this place, right? Where you drive into a community and, you're driving around and you're confused because you can't find the school. You're looking for the
Hmm,
school, that's why you're there, but you can't find it. And you
hmm,
stop, for example, at the local convenience store or gas station there at the edge of town after you've done a couple loops, right? And you go in and you say, "Hey, I'm looking for the high school."
yeah.
And the person behind the counter says, "Well, what part are you looking for?" Right? Are you looking for the kids that are interested in healthcare? Because they're all at the hospital.
Hospital.
They're on rotations. Are you looking for the kids that are interested in computers? Because they're all down at the
Mm,
cybersecurity center. They're stopping a hack. Are you
yeah.
looking for the kids that are interested in engineering? Oh, they're down working on that local bridge. So in my mind, right, that's the beauty, right? Because this idea that I have to go just to this place and all learning is going to happen and it's happening just with this set of people that I see every day, that's the
Mm,
part that in my dream it goes away.
yeah.
So that's one piece of it. And to go along with that, then what that means is what's the role of the school then? So for me, the role of the school needs to evolve to be a facilitator of learning. It's the coordinator of learning
Mhm.
opportunities. And those opportunities are community wide. And it's not that, Mr. Bauer is my teacher. Mr. Bauer is my mentor, and he's my facilitator, and
Mm,
he's the person that's making my journey happen for me. But my teacher is the person down at the Chamber of Commerce, or the person at the bank, or the person at the hospital, right? Whatever it is I need to learn, I'm going to be deployed out into the community. And the school is just facilitating that and capturing the credit so that, I'm meeting those criteria, all those things that I can't change. So that would be the other one, is that we get schools to think about their role in learning just very differently. And I guess that the third one then would be, in my sort of dream school, is that everything is based on the opportunity to learn, to explore, to embrace, and to really find the thing that you love. I want to be in a world where nobody asks a child, what do you want to be when you grow up?
mm,
Instead, that they ask that child, "Well, what kind of things do you love? Tell me
mm,
about that."
mm,
Right?
mhm.
Those are my three.
Beautiful. I love it. We covered a lot of ground today, Annalies. And so, of
We
everything
did.
we discussed, what do you think's the one thing you want a ruckus maker to remember?
I want ruckus makers to remember that it's okay to not get it right every single time, right? Just to go out there, and if you think I want to try a thing, go try a thing. Go try a thing.
Hey, Ruckus Makers, thanks again for pressing play. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. And before you go, if today's episode shifted something in you so that you want to do school different, or maybe you have a new idea about how to reimagine education on your campus, then check out My Principal Coach. It's your AI-powered leadership mentor. It's trained on 10 years of mastermind and private coaching experience that I've had. It's like having a world-class Ruckus Maker mentor in your pocket 24/7. You can start your free 7-day trial at myprincipalcoach.com.